Fernanda woke up to the sound of the alarm clock, as she did every morning. The sun had not yet fully risen over the horizon, but she was already up, ready to face another day. At 35 years old, Fernanda was a determined and dedicated woman, both in her career as a lawyer and in her personal life. Married for 10 years to Ricardo, she had a young daughter, Sofia, who was the light of her life. The morning routine at Fernanda's house was always hectic. She prepared breakfast while Ricardo read the newspaper and Sofia played with her toys in the living room. Fernanda's relationship with Ricardo seemed solid, based on years of companionship and love. They met in college and since then had built a life together, full of shared plans and dreams. Amanda, Fernanda's twin sister, was a constant presence in their lives. The two sisters had been inseparable since childhood, sharing secrets and confidences. Amanda, who worked as a graphic designer, lived a few blocks away and often visited Fernanda's house to spend time with her niece and help her sister with daily tasks. That morning, while they were having breakfast together, Fernanda watched Ricardo and Amanda chatting animatedly about a new project at Amanda's work. She felt a pang of pride seeing her sister so successful and happy. The relationship between Ricardo and Amanda had always been friendly, and Fernanda had never had any reason to distrust their closeness. After breakfast, Ricardo left for work, and Fernanda took Sofia to school before heading to the office. The workday was like any other, full of meetings, deadlines, and documents to review. Fernanda was respected by her colleagues and clients, known for her work ethic and dedication. In the afternoon, while organizing some papers on her desk, Fernanda received a message from Amanda inviting her for coffee after work. The two sisters met at a small cafe downtown, where they talked about their lives and reminisced about childhood moments. Amanda seemed more excited than usual, talking about a new project she was developing. When she returned home, Fernanda found Ricardo preparing dinner. It was a pleasant surprise, as he rarely cooked. They had dinner together, talking about each other's day and making plans for the weekend. Everything seemed normal, but Fernanda couldn't help but notice a slight tension in the air, something she couldn't identify. After putting Sofia to bed, Fernanda and Ricardo settled on the couch to watch a movie. As the plot unfolded on the screen, Fernanda felt a strange unease, a sense that something was out of place. She tried to push these thoughts away, attributing them to the day's fatigue. When they finally went to bed, Fernanda looked at Ricardo beside her in bed and wondered if she was just being paranoid. They had a good life, a loving family, and a promising future. However, that sense of unease persisted, like a lurking shadow waiting to reveal itself. And so, with these thoughts, Fernanda fell asleep, unaware that her life was about to change irreversibly. The next morning, Fernanda woke up with the same feeling of unease. She tried to ignore it as she prepared for another day, but the feeling persisted. After dropping Sofia off at school and heading to the office, Fernanda decided she needed a distraction. She immersed herself in work, trying to forget the strange sensation that had accompanied her since the previous night. In the afternoon, while reviewing an important contract, Fernanda's phone vibrated with a message. It was from Ricardo, informing her that he would have to work late. Fernanda quickly replied, wishing him a good day at work. However, when she opened the photo gallery to show a picture to a colleague, she accidentally saw a recent message from Amanda on Ricardo's phone. The message read, "Can't wait to see you again. I miss you." Fernanda felt a chill down her spine. She knew Amanda and Ricardo were close, but that message seemed out of the ordinary. Trying not to jump to conclusions, Fernanda decided she needed more information before confronting either of them. When she got home, Fernanda found the house empty. Ricardo was still at work, and Sofia was at a friend's house. Taking advantage of the solitude, Fernanda began to search Ricardo's phone for more clues. She found several messages between Ricardo and Amanda, all seemingly innocent, but the message she had seen earlier continued to bother her. Fernanda decided to call Amanda. The conversation was brief and friendly, but Fernanda didn't mention the message. Instead, she asked about Amanda's new project and how things were going. Amanda seemed excited, but Fernanda noticed a slight hesitation in her voice, something she had never noticed before. In the following days, Fernanda continued to observe Ricardo and Amanda more closely. She noticed small details that had previously gone unnoticed, exchanged glances, knowing smiles, and a closeness that now seemed suspicious. The seed of doubt was planted, and Fernanda couldn't ignore it. One night, while Ricardo was taking a shower, Fernanda took the opportunity to check his phone again. This time, she found a more incriminating exchange of messages. Amanda was asking Ricardo if he had managed to mislead Fernanda, and Ricardo replied that yes, everything was under control. Fernanda felt her heart race. She knew she needed to confront Ricardo, but she also knew she needed more evidence to support her suspicions. She decided she would investigate further before making any decisions. The next morning, Fernanda was more determined than ever. She knew her life could change drastically depending on what she discovered, but she was willing to face the truth, no matter how painful it was. The seed of doubt had grown, and Fernanda knew she couldn't ignore it for much longer. In the days that followed, Fernanda couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The seed of doubt planted in her heart grew every day, fed by small details that had previously gone unnoticed. She decided she needed to investigate further before making any hasty decisions. Fernanda began to observe Ricardo and Amanda more closely. She noticed small gestures that hadn't caught her attention before. Exchanged glances, knowing smiles, and a closeness that now seemed suspicious. Every interaction between them seemed laden with hidden meaning, and Fernanda felt increasingly isolated in her suspicions. One night, while Ricardo was taking a shower, Fernanda took the opportunity to check his phone again. This time, she found an even more incriminating exchange of messages. Amanda was asking Ricardo if he had managed to mislead Fernanda, and Ricardo replied that yes, everything was under control. Fernanda felt her heart race. She knew she needed to confront Ricardo, but she also knew she needed more evidence to support her suspicions. Determined to uncover the truth, Fernanda began to discreetly follow Ricardo. She observed his movements, noted his schedules, and tried to find any clue that could confirm her suspicions. One day, Ricardo said he would have to work late again. Fernanda decided to follow him to the office to see if he was really working. When she arrived at the office, Fernanda saw Ricardo leaving the building and entering a nearby restaurant. She parked the car at a safe distance and watched him enter. A few minutes later, Amanda arrived and joined him. Fernanda felt a knot form in her stomach. She knew she needed more concrete evidence, but the sight of Ricardo and Amanda together, laughing and talking animatedly, was enough to confirm her suspicions. Fernanda discreetly took some photos with her phone and decided it was time to confront Ricardo. She went back home and waited for him. When Ricardo finally arrived, Fernanda was sitting in the living room, waiting. He seemed surprised to see her awake. "We need to talk," said Fernanda, trying to stay calm. Ricardo hesitated for a moment, but then sat down next to her. "What is it?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Fernanda took out her phone and showed the photos she had taken at the restaurant. "What is this, Ricardo?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. Ricardo looked at the photos and his face turned pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but Fernanda interrupted him. "Don't lie to me. I saw you two together. What's going on?" Ricardo sighed and ran a hand through his hair, nervous. "Fernanda, I can explain." "Then explain," she demanded, her voice rising. "Amanda and we've been together for some time," confessed Ricardo, lowering his gaze. "I know this is unforgivable, but I didn't know how to tell you." Fernanda felt as if the ground was collapsing beneath her feet. Ricardo's words echoed in her mind, and she could hardly believe what she was hearing. "How could you do this to me?" she asked, tears starting to roll down her face. "I'm really sorry, Fernanda. I truly am. But I fell in love with Amanda, and I don't know how it happened." Fernanda stood up, unable to sit next to him for another second. "Get out of here, Ricardo. I need some time to think." Ricardo tried to approach her, but Fernanda raised her hand, indicating for him to stop. "Please, just leave," she said, her voice a whisper. Ricardo left the house, leaving Fernanda alone with her emotions. She sat on the couch, hugging herself as the tears continued to fall. Ricardo and Amanda's betrayal was a devastating blow, and Fernanda knew her life would never be the same. Fernanda spent the night awake, reliving every moment of her life with Ricardo and Amanda, trying to understand where everything had gone wrong. The betrayal of the two was a devastating blow, and she felt as if her world had crumbled. By morning, her eyes were swollen from crying so much, but she knew she needed to face the situation. After dropping Sophia off at school, Fernanda decided it was time to confront Amanda. She drove to her sister's apartment, trying to stay calm. When Amanda opened the door, she seemed surprised to see Fernanda there so early. "Can we talk?" asked Fernanda, trying to keep her voice steady. Amanda hesitated for a moment, but then nodded and let her in. They both sat in the living room, and Fernanda got straight to the point. "I know about you and Ricardo," she said, looking directly into her sister's eyes. Amanda turned pale and looked away. "Fernanda, no. I want to hear the truth, Amanda. Since when has this been happening?" Amanda sighed, looking defeated. "For a few months," she confessed, her voice low. "I never wanted this to happen, but I fell in love with him." Fernanda felt a knot form in her stomach. The pain of the betrayal was almost unbearable. "How could you do this to me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You are my sister. How could you betray my trust like this?" Amanda began to cry. "I'm so sorry, Fernanda. I really am. But I fell in love with Ricardo, and I didn't know how to deal with it." Fernanda shook her head, incredulous. "And what do you plan to do now? Are you going to stay together?" she asked, her voice filled with bitterness. Amanda wiped her tears and looked at Fernanda. "We don't know. We haven't planned anything. This is all chaos, and I don't know what to do." Fernanda stood up, unable to sit next to Amanda for another second. "I need some time to think. I don't know if I will ever be able to forgive you, but I need to distance myself for now." Amanda tried to approach, but Fernanda raised her hand, indicating for her to stop. "Please, just give me some time." Fernanda left Amanda's apartment, feeling more confused and hurt than ever. She drove aimlessly for a while, trying to process everything that had happened. Eventually, she decided she needed help to deal with the situation. She called her longtime friend Carla and asked to meet her. Carla was one of the few people Fernanda trusted completely. They met at a cafe, and Fernanda told her everything that had happened. Carla listened attentively, offering comfort and support. "Fernanda, you are a strong woman. I know this is devastating, but you will get through it. And I will be here to help you," said Carla, holding Fernanda's hand. Fernanda felt a bit of relief hearing Carla's words. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew she was not alone. In the following days, Fernanda tried to maintain a routine for Sophia's sake. She knew she needed to be strong for her daughter, but the pain of the betrayal was ever present. Ricardo tried to contact her several times, but Fernanda was not ready to talk to him. One night, while putting Sophia to bed, Fernanda felt a wave of sadness and despair. She knew she needed to make a decision about her future, but she didn't know where to start. She decided she needed more time to think and process everything that had happened. Fernanda spent the night reflecting on her life, her marriage, and her relationship with Amanda. She knew she had a difficult choice ahead: try to forgive and rebuild her life, or move on and leave the past behind. Regardless of the decision, she knew she needed to be strong for herself and her daughter. At dawn, Fernanda felt a new determination. She knew the road ahead would be full of challenges, but she was ready to face them. The revelation of the betrayal had changed her life forever, but it also gave her the opportunity to start over and find a new path. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Fernanda. She tried to maintain a facade of normalcy for Sophia, but inside, she was in pieces. The betrayal by Ricardo and Amanda was an open wound that hurt more and more. She knew she needed to make a decision, but the moral dilemma she faced paralyzed her. Fernanda began avoiding Ricardo and Amanda, refusing to answer their calls and ignoring their messages. She needed space to think and process everything that had happened. Carla became her main support, always ready to listen and offer advice. One afternoon, while having coffee together, Carla asked, "What are you going to do, Fernanda? Are you going to try to forgive them?" Fernanda sighed, looking at the coffee cup in her hands. "I don't know, Carla. Part of me wants to forgive, try to save my marriage and my relationship with Amanda. But another part of me feels that this is unforgivable. How can I trust them again? Carla nodded, understanding. It's a difficult decision. But you need to think about what's best for you and Sophia. You deserve to be happy, Fernanda. Carla's words echoed in Fernanda's mind in the following days. She knew she needed to make a decision, but the idea of forgiving Ricardo and Amanda seemed impossible. However, the alternative of moving on without them was also frightening. Fernanda felt trapped between two painful choices. One night, while lying in bed, Fernanda began to reflect on what it meant to forgive. Forgiving didn't mean forgetting or minimizing the pain she felt, but perhaps it was the only way to find peace. She knew that, regardless of the decision, her life would never be the same. Fernanda decided she needed more time to think and process her feelings. She began attending therapy sessions, hoping to find clarity and strength to make a decision. The therapist, Dr. Helena, helped Fernanda explore her feelings and understand better what was happening in her mind and heart. During one of the sessions, Dr. Helena asked, "Fernanda, what do you fear most about forgiving Ricardo and Amanda?" Fernanda thought for a moment before answering. "I think I'm afraid of being betrayed again. I'm afraid of never being able to trust them again. And I'm also afraid that by forgiving them, I'm allowing them to hurt me again." Dr. Helena nodded. "Those are valid fears. Forgiving is a process, and it doesn't mean you need to forget or minimize what happened. It means you are choosing to move forward in a way that is healthy for you." The therapist's words brought some relief to Fernanda. She began to realize that forgiving didn't necessarily mean reconciling with Ricardo and Amanda. She could forgive them to find inner peace, but still choose to move forward without them. In the following days, Fernanda continued to reflect on her decision. She knew that, regardless of the path she chose, she would need to be strong for herself and for Sophia. She decided it was time to talk to Ricardo and Amanda, to finally confront her feelings and make a decision. She arranged a meeting with the two at a cafe. When they arrived, both seemed nervous and apprehensive. Fernanda felt a wave of emotions but tried to stay calm. "We need to talk," she said, looking at the two. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened, and I need you to know how I feel." Ricardo and Amanda nodded, waiting for Fernanda to continue. "What you did was a deep betrayal, and it hurt me in a way you can't imagine. But I also know that carrying this pain and resentment won't help me move forward." Fernanda took a deep breath before continuing. "I have decided that I will forgive you. Not because what you did is right, but because I need to find peace for myself and for Sophia. However, this doesn't mean that everything will go back to the way it was. I need time and space to heal." Ricardo and Amanda seemed relieved, but also sad. They knew their relationship with Fernanda would never be the same. "We understand, Fernanda," said Ricardo, "and we will do whatever it takes to help you heal." Amanda nodded, with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Fernanda. I hope that one day you can fully forgive me." Fernanda knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she felt a slight sense of relief in making her decision. She knew that, regardless of what happened, she was on the right path to finding peace and rebuilding her life. Time passed slowly after Fernanda's decision to forgive Ricardo and Amanda. She dedicated herself to rebuilding her life, focusing on her work and Sophia. However, the shadow of the betrayal still loomed over her, and her relationship with Amanda remained tense and full of distrust. One day, while organizing documents in the office, Fernanda received a message from Amanda asking to meet. Reluctantly, Fernanda agreed, knowing they needed to talk to try to resolve the pending issues. They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe in the city center. When Fernanda arrived, she found Amanda already seated, looking nervous. She sat at the table, waiting for Amanda to start talking. "Fernanda, I know you're trying to move on, and I respect that. But we need to talk about some things," said Amanda, avoiding Fernanda's gaze. "What do you mean, Amanda?" asked Fernanda, trying to stay calm. Amanda took a deep breath before continuing. "I know what I did was unforgivable. But there's something else you need to know. Ricardo and I are still seeing each other, and we're trying to maintain a relationship. Fernanda felt a wave of anger and sadness. She had tried to forgive, but Amanda's revelation was a hard blow. "How can you continue with this, Amanda?" asked Fernanda, her voice trembling. "You knew how much this hurt me, and yet you continue?" Amanda lowered her head, looking ashamed. "I know, Fernanda. But I love Ricardo, and he loves me. We're trying to make it work, but we don't want to hurt you more than we already have." Fernanda felt the weight of Amanda's words. The pain of the betrayal returned with full force, and she knew she needed to make a decision on how to deal with this new reality. "I don't know if I can continue like this, Amanda. I tried to forgive, but this is too much for me." "I need time to think," said Fernanda, standing up. Amanda tried to hold Fernanda's hand, but she pulled away. "Please, Fernanda. I don't want to lose you as a sister. Can we find a way to make this work?" Fernanda shook her head, feeling overwhelmed. "I don't know, Amanda. I need time. That's all." Fernanda left the cafe, leaving Amanda alone. She felt betrayed again, and the pain was almost unbearable. She needed time to process everything and decide what to do next. In the days that followed, Fernanda avoided Ricardo and Amanda. She knew she needed space to think and decide what was best for her and Sofia. During this time, she began receiving threatening messages from an unknown number. In the days that followed, Fernanda tried to maintain her routine, but the tension was palpable. The threatening messages kept coming, increasing her stress and anxiety. She knew she needed help, but didn't know who to turn to. Carlo was always by her side, but Fernanda felt she needed someone with more experience to handle the situation. One afternoon, while reviewing documents in the office, Fernanda received an unexpected call from an old college friend, Marcos. He was a private investigator and had heard about Fernanda's situation through mutual friends. Marcos offered his help, and Fernanda, desperate for answers, accepted. They met at a discreet cafe, where Fernanda told Marcos everything: the betrayal, the threats, and her constant fear. Marcos listened attentively, taking notes and asking pointed questions. "Fernanda, we will find out who is behind these threats. But first, I need you to give me all the messages you received," said Marcos, in a firm and professional tone. Fernanda handed her phone to Marcos, who began analyzing the messages. He noticed patterns and clues that Fernanda hadn't perceived. He promised to investigate thoroughly and keep Fernanda informed of any progress. In the following days, Fernanda felt a bit of relief knowing that Marcos was handling the case. However, her relationship with Amanda and Ricardo remained tense. Fernanda avoided any contact with them, focusing on her work and Sofia. One night, while putting Sofia to bed, Fernanda received a call from Marcos. "Fernanda, I think I found something. Can we meet tomorrow?" he asked. Fernanda agreed, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. The next day, they met again at the cafe. Marcos seemed serious but determined. "The messages you're receiving are from a disposable number, but I managed to trace some clues," said Marcos. "It seems someone is trying to intimidate you so that you don't investigate further into Ricardo and Amanda's relationship." Fernanda felt a chill down her spine. Who could want to intimidate her? And why? "I have some theories, but I need more time to confirm," continued Marcos. "Meanwhile, I want you to take some precautions. Avoid being alone and keep Sofia always close. I will install a security system in your house to ensure you are safe." Fernanda thanked Marcos, feeling a bit more secure with the measures taken. In the following days, she tried to live normally, but the tension was constant. She knew she needed to confront Ricardo and Amanda again, but didn't know how to do it without causing more pain. One afternoon, while at the office, Fernanda received a message from Amanda asking to meet. Reluctantly, Fernanda agreed, knowing she needed to resolve things once and for all. When they met, Amanda seemed nervous and anxious. "Fernanda, I know you're receiving threats." "I am too," said Amanda, showing messages similar to those Fernanda had received. Fernanda was surprised. Who could be threatening both of them? "We need to find out who is doing this," said Fernanda, feeling a new determination. "I hired a private investigator, Marcos. He's handling the case." Amanda nodded, looking relieved. I will help in any way I can, Fernanda. I want to resolve this as much as you do. Fernanda felt a glimmer of hope seeing Amanda's willingness to help. She knew that despite the betrayal, they needed to work together to resolve the situation. In the following days, Fernanda, Amanda, and Marcos worked together to find out who was behind the threats. Marcos continued to investigate, while Fernanda and Amanda tried to maintain their routine and ensure Sophia's safety. One night, while reviewing some documents, Fernanda received a call from Marcos. Fernanda, I think I discovered who is behind the threats. Can we meet tomorrow? He asked. Fernanda agreed, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. The next day, they met again at the cafe. Marcos seemed serious but determined. The messages you're receiving are from a disposable number, but I managed to trace some clues, said Marcos. It seems someone is trying to intimidate you so that you don't investigate further into Ricardo and Amanda's relationship. Fernanda felt a chill down her spine. Who could want to intimidate her? And why? I have some theories, but I need more time to confirm, continued Marcos. Meanwhile, I want you to take some precautions. Avoid being alone and keep Sophia always close. I will install a security system in your house to ensure you are safe. Fernanda thanked Marcos, feeling a bit more secure with the measures taken. In the following days, she tried to live normally, but the tension was constant. She knew she needed to confront Ricardo and Amanda again, but didn't know how to do it without causing more pain. In the days that followed, Fernanda felt a slight sense of relief knowing that Marcos was investigating the threats. However, the tension in her life continued to grow. Her relationship with Amanda and Ricardo was more complicated than ever, and the threatening messages kept coming. One afternoon, while in the office, Fernanda received a call from Marcos. Fernanda, I have news. Can we meet tonight? He asked, with an urgent tone in his voice. Fernanda agreed, and they arranged to meet at a discreet cafe. When she arrived, she found Marcos already seated, with a serious expression. I found out who is behind the threats, said Marcos, without preamble. It's someone you know well. Fernanda felt a chill down her spine. Who? She asked, almost breathless. It's a former employee of Ricardo's company. He was recently fired and seems to be seeking revenge. He found out about the affair and is using it to intimidate you, explained Marcos. Fernanda was shocked. She hadn't expected someone from outside to be involved. What should we do? She asked, trying to process the information. I've informed the police. They are monitoring the suspect and should act soon. Meanwhile, I want you to continue taking precautions, said Marcos, trying to reassure her. Fernanda thanked Marcos and returned home, feeling a bit more secure. However, she knew she still needed to deal with Ricardo and Amanda. She decided it was time to confront them again and clarify everything once and for all. That night, Fernanda called Ricardo and Amanda for a conversation at her house. When they arrived, both seemed nervous. We need to talk about what's happening, said Fernanda, trying to stay calm. I know you're trying to maintain a relationship, but it's hurting me too much. Besides, we're all being threatened by someone who wants to intimidate us. Ricardo and Amanda were surprised to hear about the threats. Who is doing this? Asked Ricardo, concerned. Fernanda explained everything that Marcos had discovered. Ricardo and Amanda were silent for a moment, processing the information. Fernanda, I'm so sorry for all of this. I never wanted you to go through this, said Ricardo sincerely. I'm also very sorry, Fernanda. I didn't want things to get to this point, said Amanda, with tears in her eyes. Fernanda sighed, feeling exhausted. I need some time to think. I need to decide what's best for me and Sophia. And you need to decide what you really want, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Ricardo and Amanda nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. In the following days, Fernanda tried to keep the routine as normal as possible. She knew she needed to make a decision, but the pressure of the threats and the tension with Ricardo and Amanda made everything more difficult. During this time, Marcos continued to monitor the suspect and keep Fernanda informed of any developments. One day, while in the office, Fernanda received an urgent call from Marcos. Fernanda, we have a problem. The suspect disappeared. It seems he found out we were monitoring him and fled, said Marcos, with concern in his voice. Fernanda felt her heart race. What does that mean? She asked, trying to stay calm. It means he might try something desperate. I want you to stay alert and take all possible precautions, said Marcos. Fernanda thanked Marcos and hung up, feeling more anxious than ever. She knew she needed to protect Sofia and ensure nothing bad happened. That night, Fernanda reinforced the security measures in her house and decided it was time to make a decision about Ricardo and Amanda. She called them for one last conversation, determined to resolve things once and for all. When they arrived, Fernanda received them in the living room. I've thought a lot about all of this, and I've decided I need to move on. I can't keep living with this pain and distrust. You made your choices, and now I need to make mine, said Fernanda firmly. Ricardo and Amanda seemed sad, but understood Fernanda's decision. We understand, Fernanda, and we want you to know that we will always be here for Sofia, said Ricardo sincerely. I will also be here for you, Fernanda, if you need anything, said Amanda, with tears in her eyes. Fernanda nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to rebuild her life and find the peace she so desired. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions for Fernanda. The decision to move forward without Ricardo and Amanda brought a sense of relief, but also an immense void. She dedicated herself to Sofia and work, trying to fill her time and mind with activities that kept her occupied. Marcos continued to monitor the situation, but the disappearance of Ricardo's former employee left everyone on constant alert. Fernanda knew she needed to be strong, both for herself and for Sofia. However, the uncertainty about what might happen next was a constant weight on her shoulders. One afternoon, while at the office, Fernanda received a call from Carla. Fernanda, I was thinking, have you considered the possibility of moving away for a while? Maybe that would help you get away from all this tension and threats, suggested Carla. Fernanda pondered the idea. Maybe a temporary move was exactly what she and Sofia needed to regain peace and security. I'll think about it, Carla. Thanks for the suggestion, replied Fernanda, feeling grateful for her friend's support. That night, while putting Sofia to bed, Fernanda reflected on Carla's idea. A move could be beneficial, but it also meant leaving behind everything she knew. It was a difficult decision, but she knew she needed to consider all options to ensure her daughter's safety. The next day, Fernanda decided to talk to Marcos about the possibility of moving temporarily. They met at a discreet cafe, where Fernanda expressed her concerns. Marcos, I'm thinking about moving for a while. Do you think that would help ensure our safety? Asked Fernanda. Marcos pondered for a moment before responding. It might be a good idea, Fernanda. If you feel safer elsewhere, it could help alleviate the tension. However, we need to ensure the move is done safely and discreetly, he said, in a serious tone. Fernanda nodded, feeling a bit more relieved. She decided she would look for a safe place to move with Sofia and start planning the transition. In the following days, Fernanda began researching places where she could move temporarily. She found a small, quiet town, far from the turmoil and threats she faced. She decided it would be the perfect place to restart and find the peace she so desired. While making preparations for the move, Fernanda had one last conversation with Ricardo and Amanda. She wanted to ensure they understood her decision and that Sofia would continue to have contact with her father. Ricardo, Amanda, I've decided to move temporarily with Sofia. I need time to recover and ensure our safety, said Fernanda, trying to stay calm. Ricardo and Amanda seemed surprised but understood Fernanda's decision. We understand, Fernanda. We just want you and Sofia to be safe and happy, said Ricardo sincerely. I also hope you find the peace you're looking for, Fernanda, said Amanda, with tears in her eyes. Fernanda felt a mix of relief and sadness as she said goodbye to Ricardo and Amanda. She knew the move would be difficult, but she was determined to move forward and rebuild her life. On the day of the move, Fernanda and Sofia said goodbye to Carla and other close friends. The trip to the new town was long, but Fernanda felt a sense of hope upon arriving at their destination. The small town was quiet and welcoming, exactly what she and Sophia needed to restart. In the first days in the new town, Fernanda dedicated herself to organizing the house and exploring the neighborhood with Sophia. She felt safer and calmer, but knew there was still a long way to go to overcome the pain of the betrayal and the threats she had faced. One day, while walking in the park with Sophia, Fernanda received a call from Marcos. "Fernanda, I have good news. The police managed to locate Ricardo's former employee. He has been arrested, and the threats should cease," said Marcos, with a tone of relief in his voice. Fernanda felt a wave of relief upon hearing the news. "Thank you, Marcos. This means a lot to me and Sophia," she said with gratitude. With the threat finally resolved, Fernanda felt she could start focusing on rebuilding her life. She knew the road ahead would still be full of challenges, but she was determined to find the peace and happiness she so desired. In the following days, Fernanda began making new friends in the small town and getting involved in community activities. She felt stronger and more confident each day, knowing she had made the right decision for herself and Sophia. With the arrest of Ricardo's former employee, Fernanda began to feel that the dark cloud hanging over her life was finally dissipating. The move to the small town brought a new perspective and a sense of security that she hadn't felt in a long time. However, she knew she still needed to address some unfinished business to move forward completely. Determined to resolve all pending matters, Fernanda scheduled a meeting with Ricardo and Amanda. She wanted to close this chapter of her life once and for all, in a mature and definitive way. She arranged to meet them at a cafe in their hometown, a neutral place where they could talk without distractions. When she arrived, she saw Ricardo and Amanda already seated, both looking nervous and apprehensive. Fernanda sat at the table, took a deep breath, and began to speak. "Thank you for coming. I know all this has been difficult for all of us, but I wanted us to have this conversation to resolve things once and for all," said Fernanda, maintaining a calm and firm tone. Ricardo nodded, looking into Fernanda's eyes. "Fernanda, I want you to know that I deeply regret everything that happened. I never wanted to hurt you like this," he said sincerely. Amanda, visibly emotional, also spoke up. "Fernanda, I'm so sorry for everything. I know I made a mistake, and that it affected our relationship forever. I just hope that one day you can fully forgive me," she said, with tears in her eyes. Fernanda listened attentively, feeling a mix of emotions. She knew forgiveness was a process, and that, although she had already decided to move forward, she still carried some wounds. "I appreciate that you have apologized, and I want you to know that I'm working on forgiving you, not just for you, but for myself. I need that to move forward," said Fernanda, honestly. Ricardo and Amanda nodded, respecting the space and time Fernanda needed. "I also want to ensure that Sophia continues to have a healthy relationship with you. She shouldn't pay for our mistakes," added Fernanda, determined to protect her daughter from any negativity. Ricardo agreed, relieved. "Sophia is our priority, and we will do whatever it takes to make her feel loved and safe," he promised. The conversation continued, with everyone expressing their feelings and setting clear boundaries for the future. Fernanda felt that, finally, she was putting an end to this painful chapter of her life. After the meeting, Fernanda returned to the new town feeling lighter. She knew there was still a long way to go, but she was confident she was on the right path to healing and peace. In the following days, Fernanda focused on creating new memories with Sophia. She enrolled in local activities and began making new friends, finding joy in the small things of everyday life. One day, while walking in the park with Sophia, Fernanda met a woman who seemed lost. As she helped her, she discovered that the woman, named Helena, was new in town and was looking for a support group for single mothers. Fernanda, seeing an opportunity to connect with someone who could understand her struggles, offered to help Helena find the group and eventually started attending it herself. There, she met other women who, like her, were rebuilding their lives and seeking mutual support. Over time, Fernanda realized she was not alone in her journey. The stories and experiences shared in the support group helped her see that life can be unpredictable, but also full of possibilities for growth and renewal. As she walked back home after one of the group meetings, Fernanda reflected on how much she had changed in recent months. Despite all the difficulties, she felt stronger and more determined than ever to build a full and happy life for herself and Sophia. With the sun setting on the horizon, Fernanda smiled, feeling grateful for having found a new beginning. She knew the future was still uncertain, but she was ready to face any challenge that came her way, with renewed courage and hope. As time passed, Fernanda's life in the new town began to stabilize. She and Sophia were adapting well to the new environment, and Fernanda felt that she was finally finding a balance between her personal and professional life. The support group meetings continued to be a valuable source of strength and inspiration, and Fernanda had become an active figure in the local community. However, even with this new stability, the consequences of the past still loomed over her. Fernanda knew she needed to address some pending issues to move forward completely. She decided it was time to resolve the final details of her separation from Ricardo, ensuring everything was done fairly and respectfully. She scheduled a meeting with Ricardo to discuss the final terms of the divorce and Sophia's shared custody. They wanted to ensure the transition was as smooth as possible for their daughter, minimizing any negative emotional impact. On the day of the meeting, Fernanda met Ricardo at a neutral law office. Both were committed to keeping the conversation civil and productive, with the main focus on Sophia. "Fernanda, I want you to know that I'm willing to do what's best for Sophia," said Ricardo, opening the meeting with a conciliatory tone. Fernanda nodded, grateful for Ricardo's willingness to cooperate. "Me too, Ricardo. Let's ensure she continues to feel loved and safe, regardless of our differences," replied Fernanda sincerely. During the meeting, they discussed details about custody, visitation, and financial responsibilities. Both agreed to prioritize Sophia's interests, establishing a plan that allowed her to spend quality time with both parents. After a few hours of discussion, they reached an agreement that seemed fair to both. Fernanda felt a sense of relief, knowing that she had finally resolved this important part of her life. With the divorce and Sophia's custody resolved, Fernanda could focus more on her new life. She began exploring job opportunities in the town, considering opening her own law office. The idea of starting something new was exciting and gave Fernanda a new sense of purpose. Meanwhile, her relationship with Amanda also began to improve. Although there was still some distance between them, both were making efforts to rebuild their relationship. Fernanda knew forgiveness was a process, but she was willing to take small steps to regain the trust and affection they once shared. One day, Amanda called Fernanda, proposing a visit to the new town to see Sophia and spend some time together. Fernanda hesitated for a moment but realized this could be an opportunity to start healing the wounds of the past. When Amanda arrived, Fernanda welcomed her with open arms, determined to focus on the future rather than the past. They spent the day exploring the town, laughing and talking about their lives. Fernanda realized that, despite everything, there was still a strong bond between them. "Thank you for having me, Fernanda. It means a lot to me," said Amanda, as they said goodbye at the end of the day. "I'm also happy you came, Amanda. Let's keep working on this," replied Fernanda, with a sincere smile. Over time, Fernanda realized that the consequences of the past didn't have to define her future. She had the power to choose how to react and how to move forward. By focusing on building healthy relationships and creating a loving environment for Sophia, Fernanda was gradually creating the life she had always wanted. As she walked through the town with Sophia, Fernanda felt a deep gratitude for everything she had learned and overcome. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but she was confident that with determination and support, she could face anything. With the sun setting on the horizon, Fernanda looked at Sophia and smiled, feeling an inner peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. She knew that, regardless of what the future held, she was on a path of growth and renewal, ready to embrace all the opportunities life had to offer. With the issues of the past finally resolved, Fernanda felt she could breathe more freely. The new life she was building with Sophia in the small town was filled with new experiences and friendships. Each day, Fernanda felt stronger and more confident in her ability to overcome the challenges life presented. The law office she decided to open was beginning to take shape. Fernanda dedicated herself to creating a welcoming and efficient space where she could help her clients with the same dedication and ethics that had always guided her career. The local community welcomed her with open arms, and soon Fernanda began to build a solid professional reputation. Besides work, Fernanda found joy in simple everyday activities. Morning walks in the park with Sophia, meeting new friends for coffee, and attending support group meetings were moments she deeply valued. She felt grateful for every little detail that made up her new routine. Her relationship with Amanda was also on a path of reconstruction. Although there were still wounds to be healed, both were committed to regaining each other's trust and affection. Amanda's visits became more frequent, and Fernanda realized that, gradually, they were finding a new balance in their relationship. One afternoon, while walking through the town with Sophia, Fernanda met Helena, the friend she had met in the support group. Helena was organizing a community event for single mothers and invited Fernanda to participate as a speaker, sharing her story of overcoming. Initially hesitant, Fernanda realized this could be an opportunity to help other women facing similar challenges. She accepted the invitation, determined to use her experience to inspire and support others. On the day of the event, Fernanda was nervous, but also excited. As she stepped onto the stage, she looked at the audience and saw familiar and new faces, all attentive and interested in hearing her story. With her heart racing, she began to speak. "Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fernanda, and I'm here to share a bit of my journey. In recent years, I have faced challenges I never imagined I would have to face. But through each difficulty, I learned valuable lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and self-love." As she spoke, Fernanda felt a wave of emotion and gratitude. She shared the lessons she had learned about the importance of moving forward, even when everything seemed to be falling apart. "I learned that even in the most difficult situations, we have the power to choose how to react. We can let ourselves be defeated, or we can rise and fight for a better life. And above all, I learned that we are not alone. There are always people willing to support us and help us find our way." When she finished her speech, Fernanda received a standing ovation. She felt a deep satisfaction realizing that her story had touched so many people. After the event, many women approached to thank her and share their own experiences, creating a sense of community and mutual support. In the days that followed, Fernanda reflected on how much she had grown and changed. The journey had not been easy, but each challenge overcome had made her stronger and more prepared to face the future. As she walked through the park with Sophia, watching her daughter play happily, Fernanda felt a deep inner peace. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but she was confident that with love and determination, she could overcome any obstacle. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Fernanda smiled, feeling grateful for everything she had achieved and all the lessons she had learned. She knew the future was uncertain, but she was also full of hope and excitement for everything that was yet to come. With Sophia by her side, Fernanda was ready to embrace new opportunities and build a full and happy life, filled with love, friendship, and accomplishments. And above all, she was ready to continue her journey of self-discovery and growth, knowing that the best was yet to come. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment to support the channel.